I never expected to feel this way about my best friend's older brother. From the day I first stepped into their house, he was just an occasional presence, a voice calling from another room or a shadow passing through the kitchen. Liam, 2 years older than us, was in college and rarely home, leaving his younger brother, Matt, and me to our usual routines of gaming marathons and ill-planned late-night snack raids. But that summer was different. Liam had moved back home temporarily, waiting for an internship to start in the fall. Suddenly, he was around more often, his presence impossible to ignore. And maybe it was because I hadn't seen him in so long, or maybe it was something else entirely, but when I walked into Matt's house that June, my stomach fluttered in a way I couldn't explain. Liam was in the kitchen, leaning against the counter with an easy confidence that seemed second nature to him. His dark hair was messy, but in a way that looked intentional, and his sharp cheekbones caught the sunlight filtering through the window. He turned as I entered, his hazel eyes locking with mine for a brief moment before he offered a casual smile. "Hey, Noah. Long time no see," he said, his voice smooth and warm. "Hey," I managed, trying to sound normal despite the sudden dryness in my throat. Matt appeared behind me, clapping me on the shoulder. "Don't let him charm you, Noah. Liam's just bored because none of his college friends are around." Liam smirked, crossing his arms. "Don't listen to him. I've just missed the company of intellectual equals. Present company excluded, of course." It was a harmless jab, one of countless jokes he'd made over the years. But the way his eyes lingered on mine for just a second too long made my chest tighten. I shook it off, convincing myself I was reading too much into it. Over the next few weeks, Liam became a fixture in our lives. He'd join Matt and me for late-night movies, sometimes offering sarcastic commentary that had us in stitches. Other times, he'd stay quiet, his presence filling the room in a way that felt both comforting and unnerving. And then there were the small moments, the way he'd ruffle Matt's hair affectionately or offer me a grin when I made a particularly bad joke. It was one of those movie nights when things started to shift. Matt had fallen asleep halfway through a sci-fi film, leaving Liam and me alone in the dimly lit living room. The soft glow of the screen cast shadows on his face, highlighting the sharp angles of his jaw and the curve of his lips. I tried to focus on the movie, but I could feel his presence beside me like a magnetic pull. "You're quiet tonight," he said, his voice low. "Just tired," I lied. He glanced at me, his eyes searching mine. "Tired? Huh? You're not a very good liar, you know." I forced a laugh. "I don't know what you're talking about." He tilted his head, a small smile playing on his lips. "If you say so." The silence stretched between us, the sounds of the movie fading into the background. I could feel my heart pounding, each beat echoing in my ears. I knew I should say something, anything to break the tension, but no words came. Instead, I risked a glance at him, only to find that he was already watching me. My breath caught, and for a moment, it felt like the world had stopped. His gaze was steady, intense, and it made my stomach twist in a way that was equal parts thrilling and terrifying. I quickly looked away, my cheeks burning. "Noah," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. I turned to him, my heart racing. "Yeah." He hesitated, as if weighing his words. "You're different. Not in a bad way," he added quickly. "Just different." I didn't know how to respond, so I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. He studied me for a moment longer before leaning back, his expression unreadable. After that night, things changed. Liam's teasing became softer, his glances more frequent. I found myself seeking out his presence, even when it made my chest ache with confusion. I didn't understand what I was feeling, only that it was new and overwhelming and impossible to ignore. One evening, Matt decided to go out with some other friends, leaving Liam and me alone. I considered leaving too, but something kept me there. We ended up on the back porch, the warm summer air wrapping around us as the sun dipped below the horizon. Liam leaned against the railing, a beer in hand. He offered me one, but I shook my head, not trusting myself to stay composed if I drank. "You know," he said, his tone casual, "it's nice having you around. Matt talks about you all the time, but I didn't really get it until now." I frowned. "Get what?" He turned to me, his eyes catching the fading light. "Why you're important to him. You're a good friend." The compliment caught me off guard, and I felt a warmth rise in my chest. "Thanks. That means a lot." He smiled, but there was something else in his expression, something that made my pulse quicken. "You're easy to be around, Noah." "I like that." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken meaning. I opened my mouth to respond, but he cut me off. "Sorry, I didn't mean to make things weird," he said quickly, looking away. "Forget I said anything." "No," I said, surprising myself with the firmness in my voice. "It's okay." "Really?" He looked back at me, his eyes searching mine. "Are you sure?" I nodded, though my heart felt like it might burst out of my chest. "Yeah, I'm sure." The rest of the evening passed in a blur of small talk and laughter, but the tension between us remained, an undercurrent neither of us acknowledged. When I left that night, his voice lingered in my mind, along with the weight of his gaze. In the days that followed, I couldn't stop thinking about him. Every glance, every touch, every word seemed to carry a deeper meaning, and I found myself analyzing every interaction. Was I imagining things? Or was there something real between us? It wasn't until the next weekend that I got my answer. Matt had invited a group of friends over, and the house was filled with noise and laughter. Liam mostly stayed in the background, but every so often, I'd catch him looking at me, his eyes lingering just a moment too long. At one point, I stepped outside to get some air, the noise inside feeling suffocating. I leaned against the porch railing, taking a deep breath, when I heard the door open behind me. I turned to see Liam stepping out, his expression unreadable. "You okay?" he asked, his voice soft. I nodded. "Yeah, just needed a break from the chaos." He stepped closer, his presence filling the space around me. "I get that. Crowds aren't really my thing either." We stood there in silence for a moment, the night air cool against my skin. I could feel the tension between us, a tangible thing that neither of us dared to address. Finally, he broke the silence. "Noah," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "There's something I need to tell you." I turned to him, my heart pounding. "What is it?" He hesitated, his eyes searching mine. I don't know how to say this without making things weird, but I can't keep pretending like it's not there. My breath caught, and for a moment, I couldn't speak. "Like what's not there?" He stepped closer, his gaze intense. Whatever this is between us. I can't stop thinking about you, Noah. And I know it's wrong, and I know I should." Before he could finish, I closed the distance between us, my lips pressing against his in a rush of emotion. The kiss was brief, hesitant, but it was enough to confirm everything I'd been feeling. When I pulled back, his eyes were wide with surprise, but he didn't step away. I started, but he cut me off with a soft smile. "It's okay," he said, his voice steady. "I'm glad you did that." We rushed into his room, our movements a whirlwind of excitement and nerves. In the hushed intimacy of his bedroom, we shed our clothes, our bodies moving with a newfound urgency. He was gentle, considerate, and deeply present. I felt a surge of pleasure unlike anything I had ever experienced before, a dizzying blend of sensation and emotion. We clung to each other for a long moment, breathless and content, before reluctantly pulling apart. We lay there for a while, the silence broken only by the rhythmic beat of our hearts. A wave of confusion washed over me. Was this right? Were we betraying something sacred? Yet, there was a strange sense of liberation, a feeling of finally breaking free from the constraints of unspoken desires. I looked at him, his eyes still closed, a peaceful smile gracing his lips. In that moment, I realized that there was nothing wrong with this, nothing to regret. This was a testament to the depth of our connection, a recognition of the desires that had simmered beneath the surface for so long. We had explored the boundaries of our friendship, and in doing so, we had discovered a new dimension of intimacy, a love that transcended the familiar and ventured into the unknown. After all, it was really hot.